Greetings, Lewis, and welcome to another video. This past weekend was the release of the Valiant Smashers booster set in the OCG. That set is going to be our next side building set, like the one that follows Wild Survivors. And a strategy that comes from that particular set is one that a lot of people have their eye on. A lot of people are predicating into this deck being like the potential next best strategy that we might have in the TCG as well as the OCG. And that archetype is called Centurion. So the way Centurion works is it's an archetype comprised of 3 main deck monsters, 3 spells, and 2 traps. And they also have a synchro monster in the extra deck. So basically, this is a synchro archetype that functions very similar to ABC. If you're familiar with how the ABC Union strategy work, basically ABC was a fusion deck that involved around Union monsters and then being potential monsters in the spell and trap zones that can tutor themselves out into the main monster zone. So basically, every Centurion monster has the effect that as long as they're in the spell and trap zone, they are continuous traps, and they can special summon themselves from the spell and trap zone. This is not the first time this strategy has been shown. Like I already brought up ABC. Another example would be like the Vision Hero Increase that is played in the Hero strategy. That's another monster that's also treated as a continuous trap. But however, what is different about Centurion is the way the spell and traps work are very unorthodox. Pretty much, the spells have the ability of tutoring out the Centurions into the spell and trap zone. Faith can do it from the graveyard. Emblema can do it from the main deck as well as send stand-up Centurion. However, with stand-up Centurion, you do have to send a card to the graveyard. And with Emblema, you can pick either to do that or tutor a trap card or spell and trap card. If you do the Emblema's effect, you're locked into Centurions from the extra deck as long as the card that you placed is still present on the board. But yeah. Let's go and talk about the monsters now. So Primera can add you a Centurion card. Trudea can push herself into the spell and trap zone and tutor another of the Centurions. Emmet can push somebody back into the spell and trap zone and then special summon itself. If you do any of their effects for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon them. So if you add with Primera, you cannot special summon Primera. If you tutor with Trudea, you cannot special summon Trudea. Or if you special and push with Emmet, you cannot special summon Emmet. It's only for the rest of the turn. And if you do have copies of them in the spell and trap zones, you can special summon them first and then do their effects, which then will lock you into special summoning them again. Pretty much, this condition is given to them to avoid infinite loops, or avoid like looping with your opponent with your resources. Pretty much how it was designed with Ritual Beasts or with Dragon Rulers back in the day. But yeah, only one of them is the tuner, which is the Primera. And only one synchro is in the archetype, which is Legatia. Legatia is a level 12 synchro monster, so in order to summon it, you'll either need multiple level 4s or a 4 and an 8. Trudea can make herself level 8 if you special summon her. Or you can special summon Emmet, and Emmet it's level 8. So now that we went over each individual monster's effect, let's go to the synchro. Legatia is a generic level 12 synchro monster that reads, monster with 2000 or less attack cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is special summoned, you can draw one card. Then you can destroy one monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Take note that this does not target, and it's also optional to pop. So, at worst case scenario, this card is basically an upstart goblin on summon. During the end phase, you can grab a non-synchro Centurion monster from your hand or graveyard, and you can place it as a continuous trap. So basically, the main play that we'll be doing is you'll be either summoning Primera or Trudea. With Trudea, either push to grab Primera and special, or with Primera, you grab the Trudea and then, or grab a spell and a trap that can put the Trudea in the spell and trap and then special summon the Trudea. Pretty much your main play is probably going to be like Primera into stand-up Centurion. Stand-up Centurion plays either of these two in the spell and trap zone, and then special summoning one of them in order to either make this level 8 or just summon this as the level 8. And then go into Legatia. If you do Trudea's effect, you can push Trudea back and then place the Emmet and then special summon the Emmet. And then with these two, just make the Legatia. If you do that, then you have Legatia's effect, and with Legatia, you can put either Primera or Emmet in the spell and trap zone. Ideally, you're going to put Primera, because that way, during your opponent's turn, you can special summon Primera, special summon Trudea, and special summon Emmet. And you're probably thinking, what's the purpose of all of these cards being summoned on your opponent's turn? So stand-up Centurion has the effect that when any monster is special summoned, it could be either you or your opponent, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, synchro summon. So you'll either summon for another Legatea, or you can summon for another Synchro 12. A play that many people in the OCG are doing, or the main play that people are looking towards, and the reason why this deck is pretty dangerous, is summoning the Crimson Dragon. And with Crimson Dragon's effect, you target the Legatea, and since Legatea is level 12, the Crimson Dragon can move itself to the extra monster zone to special summon at level 12. Obviously, there are other examples besides these, but the main one that we're looking at is Archfiend King Calamity. Pretty fun, right? But yeah, this is the play that people are looking at when it comes to this deck, and the reason why this deck is pretty dangerous. Besides these two, you have other options, like for example, Luluwa Lilith is another example. You can tutor the Crimson Dragon into other Synchro Dragon monsters, like for example the Quasar Dragons are like prime examples of this. But yeah, so now that we covered the monsters and we covered like the main combo, let's go over the rest of the spell and traps. True Centurion is a counter trap that you can trigger to negate a spell trap or monster effect if you have a continuous spell and trap as a monster. Phalanx banishes a monster until the next standby phase, but in the next standby phase you get to special summon it. If Centurion Phalanx is in the graveyard, you can use the graveyard effect, banish it, and special summon Legatia back from the graveyard. And if you do that, the Legatia will lose 1500 attack. This is where Legatia's battle protection effect comes in. Since Legatia will be losing at 1500 attack, that means Legatia cannot be destroyed by battle because of its own protection. You have Faithful Centurion, which will tutor Centurion from the graveyard and put it in the spell and trap zone. And if And if you synchro summon for a Centurion, you can banish this card from the graveyard and do the same thing. So basically tutor another monster and place it in the spell and trap zone. So Faithful Tutor is pretty cool because it's a card that is not just recursion, but it's continuous recursion for like the majority of grind games. So it makes it so this deck has a level of resiliency and can fight through the mid to late game. Now we're going to talk about the most important card, which is Emblem of Oath. Emblem of Oath can either tutor any of these or tutor spell and traps. Notice that it does not have Centurion in its name, so you cannot add it with Primera. Pretty much like in the past, we've already seen with past archetypes where they just try to like limit the infinite potential that the deck can have. So giving it another name was pretty much like justified for this deck to be ideal and not be like quote unquote overpowered. So now that we saw what the deck can do, let's talk about the deck. This is the main deck as of right now. As you can see, you only have 8 main deck monsters and a couple of spell and traps. So you have a lot of room for non-engine. Like we're talking about at least 10 to like 20 spots. Which is really strong. Bonfire is here because Trudea is a pyro monster. So it is a tutor for this card, and as you already saw, Trudea itself can do all of your starting plays. So other cards that are potential options that can be played in this deck. You're probably noticing there's no Pot of Prosperity in here. The reason for looking that card is because Legatia does have a draw effect, so it does conflict with Prosperity. And if you look at this deck, between Bonfire, Primera, Trudea, Stand-Up Centurion, you have a lot of one-card starters. So this deck is extremely consistent as in what it's doing. So I opted for another draw card, and the draw card I picked was Magic Planter. Magic Planter is pretty cool because if you do open with Magic Planter and the Trudea, something you can do is Trudea tutor itself to put M at 6, and then with Magic Planter you send the M at 6, and M at 6 does have a graveyard effect, so you can use M at 6 on the next turn. And in case you're wondering, well, you don't get to Synchro 12 if you do that. In your opponent's turn, you can Trudea special summon herself back, then use Trudea's effect, push herself back, and then summon Primera, and then Primera's effect to special summon herself, and then use M at 6 to like push back or just like summon later with Trudea and just keep going. But yeah, another thing I want to talk about is like potential engines that can be played in this deck. So the first engine I want to talk about was the Horus monsters. I will probably make a separate video talking about these, but this is an engine that's already been played in the OCG. It's mainly been played in the Tier Element deck, but basically it's an engine comprised of the Pharaonic Sarcophagus and a couple of evil level 8 monsters that can summon themselves after you use the Sarcophagus. The reason this engine is pretty strong is because these monsters are level 8, so you can use them to make the Legatia with the Primera. And not only that, but since you have a couple of Centurion monsters that can make themselves level 8, or you can special summon some Centurions as level 8, you can potentially summon stuff like Champion Sargas and Giant Trainer. Which comes into the next card, the Therion King. Therion King works in this deck because both Legatia and the M6 are machine type monsters, so you can use the Therion King to just tutor themselves into the spell and trap zone, And say if you do that, you can actually special summon Emmett 6 from the spell and trap zone, because it will be a continuous trap as long as it's over there. Another potential engine is Nadir's Servant with the Domanica cards. The reason for that is because Despian Luluwa Lilith can special summon a spellcaster with the same attack and defense, and Primera is a monster that fits that criteria. So basically, what you can end up doing is you're using Nadir's Servant, you dump the Luluwa Lilith, and you can grab Ecclesia. Or if you have the punishment, you can do the same thing. And then during the end phase, you special summon the Primera, and then the Primera will do her tutoring effect. Another engine is the Magistus engine. Primera is a spellcaster, so you can turn her into the Artemis, tongue twister. You can synchro with her and the Trudea into the Magistus Conflagrant, and the Conflagrant can make it so you can use your other Magistus monsters as extra utility. That's where Sora comes in, because it is a monster you can search with the Artemis, and it's a monster that can use the Magistus monsters to just tutor out back monsters like the Primera. The Punk engine is also really strong because with this you can do synchro into Jam Dragon Drive, and then use Foxy Tune to bring it back, and then make Sargass. It's also another engine that works with the Centurion monsters, because any Synchro 12 that you summon can make it so you can go to Legatia if you use Primera. Another really strong thing about this engine is that this card can tutor Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, and I think moving forward, after this deck is released and this deck starts performing the OCG, I think this card is going to be very, very important, because this card is a direct answer to the stand-up Centurion, and it's also a direct answer to the Centurion monsters when they're in the spell and trap zone. I won't talk about the Asteroid too much, as I already brought up. There are other like Synchro 12 monsters that you can play. There are like potential options, like at least specifically level 12. Any of these can work with the Crimson Dragon, so you can use it. So you can use the Crimson Dragon to tutor out any of these monsters. Another thing you can do is other level 12 synchro monsters that you have are stuff like these. You have like the Super Heavy Samurais, you have the TG monster that comes out in Age of Overlord, you have the Blackwing. Like most of these synchro 12s are generic, so there is a lot of potential options you can summon in the Centurion deck. Geomathmic Final Sigma is another funny one. But yeah, now that you understood all of that, I'm going to show you a sample duel. This is a duel that was done in the OCG, and it's basically a Centurion mirror match. So the opponent on the left starts with Primera. The Primera got contested with Imperm. The opponent on the left plays the Sarcophagus, and this kind of shows you that the Horus engine is already like a potential option for this deck. The opponent just passed after they got Maxied, so they're going to the end phase. In the end phase, we're seeing the activation of Phalanx, the Centurion Phalanx. This is the trap card that banishes. So the reason they're doing this is because one, they're reading Infinite Impermanence to be in the spell and trap zone, and you can only use one effect per turn, so that way this card is not halted. The second reason they're doing this is because the after you banish a monster, the monster that comes back is a special summoned. It's not like Cypher and Lord Omega where the card just returns. This card actually special summons the monster that comes that got banished on the previous turn, meaning that he can special summon Primera and use her effect again. So that being said, the Phalanx resolves and the Primera is banished. Left player draws for turn, and then the Primera is special summoned back in the standby phase. Primera tries to activate the effect, and she got hit with a second imperm. Now we're activating Bonfire. I don't know if they noticed, but that card was activated in the column where Infinite Impermanence resolved. But for the sake of the explanation in this video and just potential gameplay between both decks, we're just going to overlook that. I know that for the most part, these people are mainly practicing with the archetype. This is not like a real tournament duel, at least to my knowledge. So the Triodeia got summoned, and now they poke with both. So here, the opponent on the left has two options. Either one, push the Triodeia in the Spell and Trap zone, and if you do that, you push for M6, and then M6 can special summon itself. Or they can just Synchro for 8 with these two for other options. They went for the Synchro 8 route, and the monster that they're summoning is Chaos Ruler. We don't have Chaos Ruler here in the TCG, however in the OCG, Chaos Ruler works in this deck because Triodeia is a dark attribute monster and Primera is a light attribute monster. Adding to that, if they end up milling like their Spell and Traps, like for example the spell card that tutors from the grave, they also do have graveyard effects. The Chaos Ruler got Ash Blossomed, so now opponent on the right draws. And they're going to resolve the Sarcophagus again. I think they're contemplating on it. Yep, they dump the Happy to dump the Imseti. And Imseti and Happy both trigger. So the Sarcophagus also has the effect that makes it so the Horus monsters can pop a monster that they battle during the damage step. So that might be a potential option here. The other potential option is just like XYZ summoning with these two. In the options, they do have Primera. They can Synchro into 12. Looks like they're just attacking. They use the Happy effect with the Sarcophagus. So player on the left draws for turn. They draw Triodeia. They summon Triodeia. And if this Triodeia gets interrupted, which it did while it was called by the grave, I think that might be like the potential end of the turn. They don't have two attributes for Chaos Ruler, so that's not an option as well. And the opponent on the right wins with Horus Beatdown. So now we're going to the next duel. Opponent on the left activates Bonfire. Bonfire into Triodeia. Triodeia is going to activate her effect. If she resolves, she'll go to the Spell and Trap zone, and most likely is going to tutor out Primera. That's not the case because it got impermed. Now they're going to activate the Horus Imseti effect, showing that the player in the left is also playing the Horus engine. They draw a card out of Imseti. Now they activate the Sarcophagus. Now they activate Volcanic Shell. Volcanic Shell makes a lot of sense in this deck if you're playing the Horus engine, because it is another target for Bonfire besides Triodeia. So now, pretty much their recurring advantage, they're special summoning back the Horus monsters one by one. Now they're overlaying both of them in the extra monster zone. And they're going to summon David Sargas. If you recall what I said earlier, this is like a potential engine option that you're doing if you're playing the Horus monsters. They're probably unfamiliar with how Sargas work because they don't have to detach to add the Ethereum monster. You just add this Ethereum monster. However, one thing that's really cool is they linked it away for gravity controller, meaning that they end up with a machine in graveyard in order for use the Ethereum King. And now at stand-up Centurion activates, dumping the last copy of Volcanic Shell in order to put Primera in the spell and trap zone. Primera then triggers, and then she gets summoned. He was going to push back the Tudea, but then he got reminded that it got impermed. So no potential option for 12 just yet. Seeing their mistake, like I said, they're probably testing. They're grabbing M6 effect. They pushed back the Tudea. And now they're doing the Legatias effect to draw one card. They drew into Emblema. Emblema is going to grab them Phalanx. And in the end phase, they're using Legatias effect to put Primera. And adding to that, they activate Maxi. So pretty much, this is a very unwinnable game for the right side. The Centurion player has the entire setup. And not only that, they activated Maxi, and they have negation in the form of the Ethereum King Regulus. And this is what I wanted to showcase. This is pretty much like the main strategy of the deck. If you play against Centurions in the future, this is exactly the play that you should be looking out for. You're probably going to see this a lot more often than not. It's very soon to tell if the Horus engine is the best way to play it at the moment, but as of right now, this is the engine of their choice that they chose to use. But yeah. So now they're resolving their effects. Lightning Storm is being activated. They chain Primera and Trudea to put themselves as monsters. And then you're using the stand-up Centurion to immediately summon into the Crimson Dragon. Crimson Dragon goes back, it tags itself off, and it summons the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. And due to that effect, the turn is pretty much over. So now we're going off with the next duel. Now we're going to game 3. The opponent on the right goes first, and they bricked. Pretty much just 2 spell and traps. Now the opponent on the right activates Sarcophagus. They dump the Happy. And there's probably going to get them Imseti. So Imseti's in the graveyard. They chain Maxi. They chain Crossout. Take note, Crossout is limited in the OCG. However, we do not have Maxi. Well, they do. So now they summon back both the Horuses. They're using Called by the Grave specifically on Imseti. So they're summoning back the Happy. And the fact that they're attacking with the Happy kind of tells you that they're not playing any more Horus monsters. Probably this is a very small engine comprising of just Imseti and Happy. That being said, he drew into Imseti using the Sarcophagus, dumping the 3rd copy of Imseti. He no longer has to worry about Call by the Grave. If in the options the opponent doesn't have it. Take note, Call by the Grave is at multiple copies in the OCG. So now they summon Maxi, and they attack for game. Closing thoughts. Pretty much this is how Centurion works. That is like a showcase duel. Probably by next week onwards, we're going to see tournament results from the OCG. And after that happens, it's going to tell us how potentially powerful Centurion ended up becoming. But for now, my goal with this video was just to showcase this archetype, because as of right now, this deck is in a lot of people's radar. This deck has been like very anticipated to release, and now it's legal in the OCG. And if this deck ends up being like one of the stronger decks of the format, at least with this video you are familiar with it, and then be more prepared for the future whenever this archetype actually releases. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this informative. I hope you found this to your understanding and your liking. If you enjoy OCG videos, I don't do them very often because I'm mainly targeting the TCG. However, I do enjoy like watching OCG content, and OCG content is a way for us to learn about strategies in the future and what to look out for. So if you do enjoy watching videos like this, please let me know in the comments. That way I can do more OCG videos in the future. But that's it from me. Keep practicing and keep dueling.